All right, I'm starting it. It's starting the recording. Let me share screen. My name is Diane Talbot. I am a Orton Gillingham tutor primarily. That was my beginning. I also tutor math, and I do academic coaching out of my office in Boulder, Colorado. I have been doing a little bit online this year. A couple of students, which I'm really grateful for at the moment because I was able to jump into online. Most of my students have jumped on the chance of being able to continue with online tutoring and even added extra times in. So that's nice, but my last week has been really full trying to schedule in extra times, reschedule because, if kids are home, they want to do different times. And then also I've been teaching tutors the basics of online tutoring. So I've been working on that. But Deide asked me to talk about specifically supporting dyslexic students during our social distancing that we've got going on. Let's see. So So one thing I think we need to remember is that dyslexic students tend to have a lot of trauma already with education in general. It's tough. It's really tough to, be behind, not have things come easily for you. A lot of our kids weren't identified until they were already struggling or failing. And so not being in school may be very traumatizing for them because they're feeling like they're not learning, or they may have a lot of relief to not be in school. But just keep in mind that we're dealing with kids who already, they've got a lot going on, and they may be struggling even more with all the anxiety that's going on in the world. But I want to talk a little bit about the opportunities that we have that are kind of unique right now. There's time for family time that some of our students, between being in sports, which is something, or other activities that they're good at, and their parents want to keep them in those, and school and tutoring, our kids are pretty burned out at this time of year. And so there's an opportunity now for family time, for extra time working at what the kids need to do instead of what their school is expecting them to do. We're having time to explore maybe their interests. Testing is paused, which is super nice. We don't have to worry about state testing right now. And just time for resting and playing and talking with students. I think for our students at home, that's a big opportunity if we can encourage parents to spend that time with their kids and make that connection with them. It's a good time in the school year for that kind of a break, I think. If you can get those kids online tutoring, I have a couple of students that are very young and very difficult, and I've had this question come to me. If the kids aren't able to do online, that maybe coaching parents on ways that they can teach their kids through Zoom so that the parents can carry on what we're doing in person online. I'm having a couple of my kids increase their tutoring days while they're out of school. It's a good opportunity for that. We were hoping to do it over the summer, but we're stepping it up so that we can get them reading on more close to grade level as quickly as possible. I'm also providing parents with supplemental work that is at their level if they request that. Just things that the parents can do to help their kids progress even faster and do review of what they work on with me. And I'd recommend, if parents can, to spend just a few minutes a day working on those skills and reviewing with the kids. And so that's something as tutors we can do, is to teach them some things that they can do with their kids at home. Um, I've seen this several times. Parents on dyslexia groups saying, I was hoping that we could spend a lot of time doing Barton, or we could spend a lot of time working on their reading, and they've got so much homework. And most of them are saying the homework isn't even appropriate. You know, the teachers, through no fault of their own, were given like one day to prepare packets, a lot of them, and they're sending home stuff that's not appropriate for the kids. It's not appropriate for their skill level. It's probably a lot of busy work. And you know, I was a special education teacher for a long time, and when I had to send homework, it didn't fit with anything I was doing, because I did direct instruction. I didn't do homework with kids. I didn't send things home that they could do on their own, because what I was doing with them was something that needed me there. And so I think that we can encourage parents to pick and choose what's appropriate. The teachers aren't going to be grading all this stuff. And if they are, so what? What are they going to do? Take away our birthdays? You know, at this point, I think we need to encourage our parents to do what makes sense for their kids. If that means tossing the entire packet of busy work out, I think that would be entirely appropriate. You know, maybe in high school, wouldn't be able to do that. But for younger grades, I think that letting your kids work at their level and work on the skills they need is so, it's a blessing really of this for some of our dyslexic kids. And then, you know, just um, replacing some of that with stuff that is good for them, I think would be a really good thing at this point. And then I would say to parents, something that we can encourage them to do is to not worry too much about getting behind. Our schools are spending a ton of time teaching skills, and a lot of them aren't even good skills. You know, if you've been following The Knowledge Gap by Natalie Wexler, which is a fabulous book if you haven't read it, and some of the science of reading things, a lot of what's happening in schools when they're teaching reading is they're teaching skills like comprehension skills that really aren't scientifically based to help kids. You know, it teaches them the vocabulary and how to pick the right answers for standardized tests. But what Natalie says about that is that our kids are lacking a great deal of knowledge. So this is really an opportunity for tutors and parents to fill in those gaps, for tutors to fill in the reading and decoding portion, and for parents to fill in knowledge and you know, just life experience for our kids that they're not necessarily getting in school. You know, I would definitely recommend that parents spend their time that they're home with their kids and read to kids, and you know, watch movies and compare the movie to the book. You know, make things, create things, cook things, play together, and you know, just talking to kids. I know that so many kids with dyslexia have a huge gap in their vocabulary because they haven't been able to read. And so this is a wonderful time to do all of those things with kids. And if we can encourage that, I think it's a great thing to do. And not worry too much about losing skills or getting behind from school. Spending that family time and that people time, I think, is a really good thing for our dyslexic kids. Definitely, when we can, encouraging the families to get outside. There are tons of virtual field trips that you can go on now. I've sent a couple of parents links to cursive writing curriculums that they can do at home. It's called The Rhythm of Handwriting. It's a really good one. It has a lot of similarities to how Orton Gillingham is taught. It has little like, what's the word I'm looking for? The verbal cues for each of the strokes, and it's not terribly expensive for a single user pack. I bought it years ago, but I think it was like $35. Um, and it's a whole workbook method of teaching cursive, which would be a great thing for our students to work on while they're at home. And I have a daughter who now looking back, I realize she probably had some level of dysgraphia, and learning cursive for her was just miraculous. She became a much better writer once she learned cursive. It clicked for her. And it may not with every one of our kids, but we know from the research that handwriting is great for our kids, and that's something parents could do on their own. And then, of course, playing games and just relaxing and trying to keep the stress level down for our kids. I think that's an important thing to reassure our parents. And I think for tutoring, that at this time especially, even if you're experienced with online tutoring, there are going to be glitches. There have been some Zoom glitches. Wizimo's had some difficulties because they've had so many new users. And so give yourself a break. You're going to have some glitches with the technology. And kids there's some stress going on. I've noticed that even the kids that I'm used to, they're a little more squirrely. They're a little more, needing a little more coaching for just staying learning. But I think it's a good time to not be as, maybe still in control, but maybe not as strict. Let some fun in. I think kids need that right now. So I've just been a lot more, I don't know, we've done a lot of laughing. We've done a lot of, I let them scribble on the Miro board, or we draw confetti to celebrate. When they finish reading a difficult passage, we draw confetti and say yay. The other thing that I've been doing recently that my students love is I discovered that on PowerPoint, the animations, and I'll show you that if anybody wants to when I'm done with the PowerPoint here. But those animations are so much fun, and they're so rewarding for kids to be able to play with those. But I think this is a good time to be flexible, have backup plans, play a lot of games. Not spend that time, maybe go a little slower in the progression, but do a lot of review, do a lot of fun things with the kids, because they're sitting home, they're being bored, and actually my students are really excited to see me, which is kind of fun. Usually they're pretty excited to see me anyway, but right now there's not much going on in their lives. And so being able to meet with somebody they're comfortable with and play and be able to feel successful is a really good thing for them. So that's my PowerPoint. And then I thought I thought I'd kind of open up for some questions or sharing of ideas of how, what ideas do you have, or questions do you have? Anyone?
Thanks, Diane. I have a question. So I think what I've heard a lot is parents of younger kids and maybe kids with attention issues, they're just not sure how to get them to focus when they're online. And I know that it can be a challenge. What would you suggest if the parents aren't able to necessarily like sit with their child while they're doing tutoring?
Well, I've been actually doing this because my granddaughter is 6. And she's not dyslexic, but she's definitely squirrely. And she definitely, I'm grandma, so she needs a lot
Mm.
of reassurance. And so I've been working with her. She's one of my younger ones, and she's not terribly computer savvy. She's having a lot of difficulty working the mouse.
Yeah.
And, they can't afford to just get a bunch of equipment that makes it easier for her. So the mouse was very frustrating to her. And she started, tearing up and saying, I don't want to do it. And so I kind of, one thing that I did yesterday with her is I had a game, and let me see if I can pull it up. She actually doesn't have good internet. Like I think she was
Mhm.
on a Chromebook, so she didn't have the control because they have Chromebooks
Yeah.
at their house. And so what I did was I took this game, which is just I built in PowerPoint. It's got, like sail and main and
Hmm.
pail in here. And what I did is I took um, the draw tool and I numbered them
Hmm. Yeah.
so that she could tell me the number and then I could move them for her.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing when I did the bingo. I just wrote numbers on it. So that
Mhm.
way she could do it independently without without her mom standing there saying, yes, she knows what it when it is, and then I would move it over. That was our first day we tried. And so that's one way you can do it, is find ways that they don't need to use the mouse so much. I know it's not as ideal because they're not having the interaction, but also maybe going old school and having a whiteboard
Mm.
or markers so that they aren't having to deal with the technology quite so much. And, maybe even, standing up and doing shapes with your body or skywriting, things like that. More of the old school kind of things I think we need with the littler kids rather than trying to force them to figure out that technology immediately. Um, So does anybody know these 3D models? These are the coolest thing I have ever seen. I just figured this out the other day, like a week ago, and it's our new favorite thing. So you go to the insert and the 3D models, and then these animated models are the funnest thing ever. So I will either put one in or I'll let them pick one. And it takes a minute to insert, which is why if I have a lot to get done, I'll do it beforehand. But then um, you can start the animation, and let's see, when it gets these little oval things, you can make these guys dance.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
And,
that's awesome.
and they flip around, and it's just the most awesome thing. It's so rewarding for the kids. Just,
Yeah.
5 seconds of being able to play with it. This skateboarder is one of my favorites now. So they're like, the kids are like,
That's
whoa.
awesome.
We've got the whole thing going. And they're a lot of fun. And that's what I'm finding is my rewards. Since I'm not a big, giving out candy or prizes kind of tutor anyway, but I'm trying to find ways that I can reward students with something visual
Yeah.
that they get to do. And these animations are great. The other thing that I tend to do is I'll put down, like I'll insert a bunch of cards, you know, that I just make. So like I'd make a bunch of cards and copy them and put my um, words or whatever on them. But then what you can do, you can either take a still image or one of these and put it behind
Yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah.
that once they've read all of them, they've got that reward sitting there behind there and they get to play with it. And that,
I like that.
and especially if it starts peeking out a little bit, you know, as you get closer down, they're like, oh, what's under there? And so that's a great reward for them. But I love these animations. They're a lot of fun. Anything else? Any ideas that you guys have for ways to engage those little ones?
I'm wondering what version of PowerPoint you're using.
It's the most recent one. I am not sure what the number is, but my husband, he also works from home or does, he's a writer. And so he purchased the ongoing one that puts in all the latest versions. So we've got whatever's latest. So
Yeah, the Office 365. That's what I have too.
yeah. But it's got a lot of fun things in it. The other thing that I use a lot of recently is the word art, where just doing, like when I have kids mark their syllables, I've got my vowel, and I usually make this a little bigger because it's easier to move around because they can grab it better. But then they can put the vowel on top of the vowel and the consonant on top of the consonant. The draw tool, the thing I find with draw tool is the thin thing. Kids get really crazy with with the draw tool if it's a thin line because it looks wigglier, but the thicker lines don't seem to freak kids out as much. They don't look as not neat. So these special effects
those are so cool.
These are our new favorite thing. We love those. And those are great for marking syllables, for putting, the brev and the macron over things or anything like that. Another thing, did I have it in here? I'm trying to remember where I've got my things. I've got so many kids going right now on PowerPoints that this one. Oh, this was one that I did today and my student loved it. I do this a lot with my students in person where I fold the paper into 9 pieces, so 3 times and then 3 times the other direction, and do their sight words this way. And so using the draw tool, I have them first of all trace my thick one. So there we go. So they trace W-A-S spells was, W-A-S spells was, and whoops, I gotta move this up. There we go. And then they do the next line with being able to see it, W-A-S. I can't even spell my sight words here. And then what I did is I made this thing so that I can cover, send to the back, no, send to the front, bring to front, there. So I can cover this side and then they can do it without looking. And then the last thing I do in person is that I will have them turn it over and write their words on the back without looking. So, they have to close their eyes and try to write it. And it's, oops. forgot to go back. And they look away and try to write it 3 times as they say it. So that was a very popular one with my student this morning. The other
I like that. Thank you for sharing that. I used to do it in person and never thought about doing it
yeah,
in real life. And one of my students has a touchscreen computer we just figured out, so it's been really nice for the sight
yeah.
to be able to
I
use
wish all
the
my
finger.
students had touchscreen. That would be really helpful.
It's in the future. I bet like it's
It will
gonna
be.
go towards that for sure.
I think so. The other one that I've been doing, and I'm just going to try to find one that has one on there. Let's see. I know this one does. So this is from Reversing Reversals by Dr.
Erica Warren, I think?
Yeah, Erica
Yeah.
Warren. And I've just taken those and done a screenshot and stuck them in, but these work really well with the drawing tool.
Nice.
And so, whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm trying to get my drawing tool. There. So these work really well too. They can do this. And so that's one that I'm really enjoying. And I just put my reading things on, I put pretty much everything into a PowerPoint, and then I kind of have, I go into Wizimo and back it out. I use Wizimo, PowerPoint, and Miro primarily are the 3 things that I'm using for my tutoring. What is everybody using for their tools?
Same. Didy's kind of helped us a lot. Miro has been wonderful. I just started doing PowerPoint more, but I kind of like Miro a little better. It's easier to like write on and do some things. So, but I like how organized the PowerPoint is.
Yeah.
That's what the PowerPoint kind of, I use it kind of as my outline because it's easier just to navigate, but I go in and out of it a lot to Miro. I just purchased a professional, one of the plans from Miro. Before, I kind of had all my students on, different portions of my page, and it was getting to be, especially once I started tutoring completely online, it became very unmanageable. And luckily, I had a parent who paid for my subscription because I was using it with 3 of her kids.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that worked out well. But I love Miro. It's just, I'm doing a lot of structured word inquiry on it. And like this morning, let me show you what a student did. This is a kid who's working on comprehension with me and writing. And he's a 7th grader. And I just went to ReadWorks, and I found some stories that were some reading passages that were on cartooning. I was trying to do something to interest this kid. He's just one of those kids that doesn't get interested in a lot. So we read a couple of articles on ReadWorks, and then we started kind of taking what we read and then adding some of his favorite cartoons into there, and we made a timeline.
Nice.
And then the next time we get together, we're going to go through and do kind of write a little report on cartoons through history. So that was kind of our way of organizing it. But he really enjoyed being able to use the Miro board and caught onto it super fast and was moving things around and labeling things. So I think it's a great tool for this online stuff. Any other ideas you guys have?
So a couple of people have asked me about still working on handwriting, which is a tricky one online.
I think it is, especially if you don't have, I think if they've got a touch screen,
Yeah.
But online is, I would be happy to do that. Most of my kids, even the ones that are very well off, don't have touch screens. They're all so impressed with my touch screen. Like, whoa, you have a touch screen. So none of my kids have a touch screen at the moment. So I really haven't been doing a lot of handwriting. I'm thinking of investing in a doc cam
Yeah.
for that. But I really haven't concentrated a lot on handwriting at this point. I have the mom that I've been doing, that is a homeschool mom. She's been doing handwriting in cursive on her own with her daughter. But
Yeah, that's what
still
I
kind
think
of tough.
yeah, I think it makes sense for the parents to kind of work on that at home if they can. Because I would think you would both have to have a document camera to really make it.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
know
I
some
think
people kind of angle like the laptop down or something so you can kind of see them writing, but
it's hard, and it's hard to
backwards.
really see what they're doing, and then the kids can't have a hard time adjusting. Half the time, my kids, I'm like, can you let me
Yeah.
see your face? They
Exactly.
can't even get it adjusted so I can see their face, let alone their hands. Um, I think that would be a really great opportunity for doing a parent coaching session to teach them, what you would look for in a grip, maybe have them send you pictures of their kid writing or a video of their kid writing so you can give them hints on how to teach their kid to hold the pencil, and
Yeah.
kind of coach them on the best way to teach it. And like I said, I know that Handwriting Without Tears has a cursive handwriting, and the rhythm of handwriting I think is really good. And then there's Diana Hanbury King also has a good workbook that you could have the parents do, but maybe
Mhm.
coach them a little bit on how to teach it best.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But that's the one thing that with online that I just think is really difficult to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Anything else? How is everybody feeling? I know most of you do online tutoring anyway, so it's not as big of a change for you. But I know a lot of tutors are really having a huge learning curve this week.
So I'm in the alumni group for where I did my master's, and it's interesting because a lot of them, they're in Massachusetts, and a lot of them have been doing great things, but they were really clueless. So I made like a basic video for them, nothing fancy, but it blew their mind. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, guys, you can do this. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's really cool to hear back from them to say, oh, okay, I can. And
Yeah.
a lot of them bought the course that
Emily
Motivation
and
Nest
Jill.
did, the $10 online
Yeah.
course they have. So I think that's been helping them, but it's just interesting to watch them
Yeah.
kind of figure this out.
I am so grateful that I jumped into online earlier this year so that it wasn't a huge jump for me, because having to do that all at once would have been a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
I'm Katie Beckett. I can't see myself. I don't know why. Somehow I just.
Yeah, we can see you.
Oh, you can? Because I can't see me. I don't know. I don't know where my head went. But this is all brand new to me, and I will say I'm kind of overwhelmed at the moment. But I'm working hard to kind of piece things together based on what I have on my computer and how to organize it. I'm very excited about it. So, but yes, it is a learning curve for me, but yeah, it's exciting. And this PowerPoint stuff looks really great too. So I'm looking forward to exploring that as well as another tool.
Yeah. I've started doing the PowerPoints, and I actually like the organization of it enough that I've used, if I'm teaching a student in person the same lesson, I'll just pull it up on my laptop to kind of guide our lesson, because it just helps me stay organized, and the kids like it. Just kind of having that to go along. I think that Miro is kind of nice in that I think of it as like my classroom bulletin board.
Yes.
You know, I can have things, let me show you what I've been working on with students recently. So let's see, here's one that's just starting. We're starting working on the vowel teams. And so I just made this from the LIPS curriculum. I copied the pictures and did the vowel, the circle of vowels. And now as we start learning the different vowel teams, we're going to start kind of filling this in. And that way we've always got this reference. So this is like our bulletin board. And I'm just doing this with each of my students. I was doing this like in a file folder, and we were sticking actual sticky notes on it, but I switched it over to this last week. So I'm really liking having this, and I'm thinking even when I go back to being more in person, I may just do this with students anyway, because I like it. So I'm learning a lot of things. Yeah. You don't have to keep track of things. You don't have to, because my office is 30 minutes away from me. I live in a suburb of Denver, but my office is in Boulder.
Oh, wow.
It's not terribly far. It's like 30 minutes. I'm North Denver, but I don't live in an area where I would draw clients that would be able to pay my rates. And I had a really good connection with the educational evaluator that I also work for. I do evaluate the academic portion of the evaluations, and she had an extra room in her office building at exactly the right moment. But I found that it's a great location for my business. But I'll be planning at home and I'll be like, oh, I left such and such at the office. And now having stuff online on the Miro board, it's like, oh yeah, that's where we were with the student. Because when you've got a lot of students, it's really hard to remember what you did with which kid, and whether you got to AY or whether you're on AI or what did you even do with them. And so this kind of helps me to be able to have what we've done at all times with me, as long as I've got my computer. So I like it for that reason as well.
So what's the difference of when you would choose to use PowerPoint versus when you would choose to use Miro?
I use PowerPoint kind of to guide my lesson. So I start out in PowerPoint each time, and I'll say, this is what we're working on today. We're going to learn AY that goes with play. And then this one is where I would go to Wizimo and do the letter cards and the tiles and just do, the card deck, what's the A, B, C. And then I come back, and these are resources from Emily's The Literacy Nest, the complete Orton Gillingham. I've kind of just gone to her scope and sequence because she's got word lists and stories. Where is it? Stories that all match up. And so whatever you use, I paste those right in there. I'm thinking I have the first 4 levels of Barton. So I'm thinking I may get the online version of those while Susan is sending them out, if you've got an authorized copy from her. Because I can use those and just paste them into my lessons like this. So that's nice. I tend to put in a picture of a vocabulary word that I think, or something about it. So this one's about a kid that has a cast. And so I put in a picture of a cast. I try to find words that I think they may not know as well. Though most of my students they have pretty high vocabularies. And then this is when I do phonemic awareness. This is, I do the Kilpatrick exercises here. So this is just kind of a prompt. Okay, this is where in the lesson I do this. And then I send myself to Miro with similar little prompts. So this is kind of my outline of my lesson.
So do you have different ones saved for different students or different levels?
I have them at the moment by by skill. So this is just AY. But if I have another student that needs it to be tweaked, then I save it under, like version 2 or advanced version. I have some students that I use a more advanced decodables with. They have a lot more multisyllabic words and little more mature themes, not mature themes, but you understand what I mean. Yeah. And so I'll put in the title of it, like AY, and I usually with the older kids it'll be AI and AY advanced, and I'll save it that way. And so I'll save different versions, and I make little tweaks, like my Silent E ones had a lot of fairies in them with magic wands, but then when I do it with a student that is not as much into fairies as the little girl I made it for, I kind of make it a little less varied. But other than that, I can reuse these lessons pretty well for that skill, because I do tend to stick with the same sequence, just because then my stories are don't have skills they don't know. So that helps. But this really just keeps me organized. I really like PowerPoint for that. I tried to kind of go over to doing it all in Miro, and I just didn't feel like I had the organizational piece as well.
Yeah, I think if you're using Barton, that kind of provides some of that organizational piece and structure outside of necessarily needing to do this, although I like a lot of the features that it has for sure.
Yeah.
So what does this, what can't this do that Barton does, or that the Miro board does?
You can't, I have not found how to lock things. Like if you make a game in Miro, you can lock it so that it doesn't get moved around, and then you can move the pieces on it. So I like games and manipulatives better on Miro. The other thing, I'll have students that'll be like, if I started out doing a lot of my games on tiles in here and blending boards and things, but I started having a couple of kids that are a little ADHD, and they're like this, I'm like, stop. And Miro, you can kind of lock things a little better so that they don't go quite as crazy. But the thing I do really like about PowerPoint is when I do, let me find one that's got one of those.
Because you can write on the PowerPoint, right? You have all those tools for writing.
Yeah, you can write on the PowerPoint, and you can move things around. So like I've got this blending board that I made. So, except that I need to fix this and bring it to the front. And so, I can just, and I think these are all off. Anyway, you get the idea. I just pull them down, and I have them in the order that they work, so that I can just pull them down and have the kids read them. But then if I go to save it, if I don't want to save the changes that the kids have made or what they've written all over, then I just close it and say don't save, and it goes back to my original. And Miro, I have to manually put everything back. So that's one thing I really like about PowerPoint, is being able to just save it and have it not be all messed up for me.
Diane, do you know of any good resources for parents for in between lesson times, things that they might be able to practice with? Like, do you have them do Nessie or anything like that?
I have been sending them pages from the Literacy Nest things that the parents print out. That's the main thing I've been doing. But I'm thinking Nessie's a really good one for them to do at home, and it kind of follows along with fairly close to the Orton Gillingham kind of sequences. So far, I haven't done a lot of that, but I'm expecting parents are going to start asking for
Yeah.
more resources at home. So that's something to really be thinking about, what what ways they can support their kids at home. Because I'm just suspecting, I know as a teacher, especially as a special ed teacher, that if I had been asked to send home service stuff for my kids with dyslexia, it would have been a mess. There wouldn't have been something good to send them that the parents would have found useful or the kids would have found useful. So I mostly would have been doing it just because I had to. So I'd rather, that students have something useful if they're going to be at home, and then being sent busy work from teachers.
Yeah. No, I think that's a very good point.
No, I've seen so many parents say, I don't know what to do. Should I, they've got all this homework, and I'm like, throw it in the trash. In fact, I had a little GIF of, throwing papers in the trash, and just kept posting it on those, saying, don't, they can't force you to do this stupid busy work. There's no reason for it. This is one time when the parents get to make the choice.
For sure.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I've done recently that would be good to show you. Can't think of anything off the top of my head. I know I would think of it. And I've just been kind of placing these in here as their break too.
That's so cool.
So I love them. I could sit and play with them for hours, I think.
It's just like a virtual toy.
It is. This is a game from this is the word list builder that's also Literacy Nest, and you can put words in it, and then you can make a lot of different board games. And my kids love this. I generally just call out at random until time is up. I usually do this the last thing, and magically, just as we're hitting time, they find the last word and have a bingo. But they love this one. The other one that I like to do is with a word list. I'll go up into icons, and this is pretty quick to choose because they're limited, and I say, okay, pick an animal, and they'll pick an animal, and I'll pick an animal. And then I'll take and copy them. And then we just play this game, and they love this game. I'll say, all right, put your bunny on the word koi. And they're like, hop, 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 hop. And they put it on there. And then they'll say, put your rat on the word soy. And I'll be like, or whatever. And we just do that until the words are covered, and they love it. And it's a great way to go through the word list, and just practice words. I use it a lot of the time for like review words, and they enjoy it. They feel like they're playing a game, and especially the little kids really like doing that. So
I like that. Yeah.
That one's a fun one. All right. Anything else? Any other burning questions that you can think of, or comments or ideas that you have?
Where did you get those icons from?
Right up here on the insert menu, and then it's next to shapes. And they've got all kinds of icons. I usually just use the animal one.
Yeah, it's kind of like the icon finder in Miro.
Exactly.
But they just hop.
Yeah.
They don't hop in Miro. You're just going to move them over.
Yeah.
This is cute.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun because you can, and now this last a little boy yesterday, he discovered that he could change it. And this is my, just relax and not get too uptight. He'd be like, I'm making a bigger rabbit than yours. And so at the very end, I was like, the very last one, I put it on there and I was like, but we just had a lot of fun. We still read the words, but we were playing with the sizes and, or we'll pick an animal that one is predator and one is prey. Have a little competition about who wins it, but that just makes it a little more fun. And it's also good for him to figure out how to manage the mouse and changing things around, as long as you can, I love that Didi showed me how to take away their control quickly. Because sometimes you're like, oh no, stop right now. Because they get a little happy once they've discovered that they've got the power. It's fun though. I just feel so lucky that we have this way to help kids right now. And the parents are so grateful because, their kids have no consistency and, they're trying to fill all this time without anything outside. And just to have that consistent, you're going to see Diane again, and we're going to keep this going. Really, it helps them, and they're super happy to see me. So I think it's really a blessing for all of us. We're in the right field at the right time. I don't think we're going to be, unless the economy really tanks, as long as parents can, they're going to want us.
For sure. Yeah.
And we're creative. We'll figure things out if we have to do groups or whatever to bring costs down. Hopefully things will get better, or not get a lot worse.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, so that's the end. If anybody doesn't have comments or questions.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. This was great.
Thank you for having me, Didi.
I really enjoyed seeing all the different ways that you do things, even though, we're already doing all these other things, but it's always something we can add and learn about.
Exactly. So. That makes a big difference, because we all just come up with our own ways of doing things. And,
for sure.
And it gives me ideas whenever I see how somebody else does it, and then I adapt. All right. So anyway, it was fun to spend some time with you guys. Good luck with everything, and the ones of you that are learning, just keep trying new things and you'll get there.
Yep. Thanks for the encouragement.
Yep. All right. And I'll send the video link to you, Dave.
Okay. Can you send the PowerPoint as well?
Yep, absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right. Yep, bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.